Hey everyone, it's Chrono with Headphones.com, and today I'll be sharing with you my favorite headphones under $500. Now, for some of you out there, when you think of headphones in this price bracket, you might be envisioning things like the AirPods Max, the Sony WH-1000 XM5, Bose 700, etc, etc. If you're not super familiar with hi-fi audio, I'd highly encourage that before watching this video, you check out a video that DMS made with Headphones.com, and it's a starter guide per se for high-end headphones and whatnot. So that will be linked in the description down below if you're curious and would like to learn more. I also think that it'll clarify some of the terminology in this video. But without further ado, let's get started with a twin set of headphones that I think no one will be surprised to see in this video, and I am of course talking about the Sennheiser HD600 and HD650. So these two are probably some of the most iconic and recognizable headphones in the audiophile hobby, since they've been around for over 2 decades now, and they retail for $299 and $399 respectively. While they suffer in their soundstage and imaging performance, which makes them a bit more intimate of a listen when compared to other headphones on this list, what really sets the HD600 and HD650 apart is their excellent frequency response and detail retrieval. Back in the 90s, when these headphones were first introduced, they really set a standard for what reference class listening should sound like. The bass doesn't extend very well in the sub-bass region, but both headphones feature a prominent mid-bass bump that adds a distinct warmth to the low end and also enhances the kick you get behind bass tones. Additionally, these two headphones are essentially synonymous with mid-range, as they have rich and present mids that, although a tiny bit forward in the upper mid-range region at around 3K, they never fail to remind me why these headphones are hailed as the mid-range gods. And while the HD650 in particular does occasionally get labeled as being veiled or dark sounding, I actually find both of these headphones to have quite nuanced and well-extended treble regions. The reason as to why I group these two headphones together is that despite the considerable $100 price gap between them, the HD600 and HD650 actually deliver nearly identical listening experiences with similar tonal characteristics, great scalability with source equipment, and outstanding detail retrieval. The only real difference the HD650 has is that it has a slightly more pronounced bass region, and the treble is a little bit more rolled off. For my taste and preferences, I actually prefer the more airy and sparkly treble of the HD600, but if you prefer a warmer listen, then the HD650 or HD6XX is the Sennheiser for you. Either way, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these, and I believe that they're some of the best headphones to get into the hobby, and generally they just make a fantastic addition to any audio enthusiast collection. Moving on now from the living legends that are Sennheiser's HD600 series headphones, we have what I think is becoming more of a modern classic, and I'm sure everybody who's watched the Headphone Show videos is familiar with this headphone, and that is the HiFiMAN Sundara, which retailing at $299 was, in my opinion, the first set of headphones to really challenge the HD600 and HD650 for the title of mid-fi open back king, at least at the time of their release in 2017, and especially after the infamous 2020 pad revision. So what makes the Sundara so awesome? Well, one of the key features of the Sundara is that, unlike most headphones in this price range, it's not using a dynamic driver to generate sound, instead using a planar magnetic driver. And along with that comes the characteristics that are associated with this kind of technology. Some of the more distinct planar qualities in the Sundara are the excellent bass extension, a quicker leading edge to notes, and like a greater sense of immediacy, more articulate bass, and slightly better instrument separation. This is coupled with a design that, despite not having any cup swivel, I think is actually pretty comfortable to wear, and a frequency response that is just as good as its technical performance. Like the HD600 and HD650, the Sundara has a tonality I describe as being neutral or natural sounding. As I mentioned previously, the bass features great extension, though the bass shelf under 120 Hz is somewhat lean, so I think that it could benefit from a bass boost toggle or EQ. The mid-range again has a well-defined body, but like most HiFiMAN headphones, it does feel a little blunted at around 2K, which can make things like electric guitars or brass instruments sound a little softer or quieter. They don't have as much of their bite or growl. And then the treble, it has a little bit of like added brilliance at around 7K, but it's not something that I think I would say makes it harsh or fatiguing. It's only a very subtle thing. Two more things I wanted to note were that while the imaging and directionality of the sound aren't the greatest in the Sundara, since its center image is a little weak, it does boast a more spacious soundstage than what you get on the HD600 series headphones. The other thing is that despite being a planar magnetic headphone, the Sundara still actually has a pretty good sense of punch and slam, making for an energetic listen. Next up, we have a headphone that is new to me, and that is the $349 R70X from Technica. A few months ago, I actually reviewed Technica's flagship, the ATH-80X 5000, which to me was like a great alternative to Sennheiser's flagship, the HC100S. And I feel somewhat the same about the R70X in relation to the HC600 series headphones, since, you know, they both use dynamic drivers, and they do have some similar characteristics in their tonality, you know, with a pronounced mid-bass region, present mids, although the R70X does seem to be a little bit on the warmer side for the treble, particularly at around 6K, where it does seem to dip and could use a little more energy. I didn't find them to be as detailed or as resolving, but there are a few key improvements on the R70X when compared to the HC600 series headphones. And the most noticeable one to me was that the bass on the R70X, despite rolling off, it felt a bit tighter, and the driver here also seemed to deliver a more satisfying and pronounced kick alongside low tones. And then there's the soundstage, which, like on the Sundara, doesn't seem to have the most precise imaging, but it is a little more spacious and effective at creating a sense of distance. Lastly, we have the $499 HiFiMAN Edition XS, which I think delivers the very best technical performance of the headphones I've mentioned so far. I find that for things like instrument separation, imaging, detail retrieval, the performance here is, I think it's closer to something like the Ananda, more so than it is to, you know, the HC600 Sundara and R70X. It also has the long ear cup, like ovoid design that is common with a lot of HiFiMAN's like more high-end headphones, which also happens to make this one of the most comfortable headphones on this list, since the ear cups are super roomy. And it also has like the new HiFiMAN headband, which actually features swivel. And it also distributes the headphones weight very efficiently with not too much clamp. Again, like the Sundara, the Edition XS is using a planar magnetic driver that provides a very deep and precise bass response, although I'm not personally a big fan of the mids and treble on this headphone. The mids to me feel somewhat lean or scooped at around the 700 to 2000 hertz area, and then the mid treble feels artificially brightened around like 7K, with the upper treble also having a very prominent peak somewhere between 12 to 14K, which adds a strange and very noticeable glisten to like a lot of elements in the music. Of course, if you don't mind brighter sounding headphones or using a bit of EQ, then this may not be a problem for you, but it's something to keep in mind if you're treble sensitive or are a more mid-centric listener. Now to wrap up this video, I just wanted to give some honorable mentions to the Sennheiser HD560S and the Biodynamic DT770 Pro, since at $179, the 560S is a very good alternative to the HD600 series headphones. And actually, I think that there are some things that the HD560S does better than the 600 series stuff. You know, it doesn't have the detail retrieval, but it does have a much better soundstage and a much better imaging. I actually love those for gaming. And at around $150, there's the DT770 Pro, which is still my personal #1 choice under $500 for a closed back headphone. I think that really you can't go wrong with any of these headphones. And if there's one thing I've certainly learned while testing these and working on this video, is that this is a great time to get into hi-fi, as there are now more competent options than ever to get into the hobby. And if you already have one of these headphones, know that there are many others to try out that'll provide a different flavor without having to bust the bank. Also, one more thing I want to mention is that I've made EQ profiles for all these headphones, and there will be a link in the description down below to, you know, my EQ preset list on the Headphones community forums. Anyways, that is all for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video or found it useful. If you did, do consider dropping a like. If you'd like to learn more about all these headphones or many others, I highly encourage you to check out the guides and review section available on headphones.com. For more headphone audio content, stay tuned by subscribing to the Headphone Show here on YouTube. And until next time, this is Chrono signing off.